Well, welcome everyone to another episode of the Hector Mike Experience, common sense in an uncommon world. And so we are now. I'm in Los Angeles. Mike's obviously lives in Pasadena, Southern California, and I mean this is. We originally wanted to do this podcast about 2 hours earlier, but seeing how we got home last night about 1 or 2 in the morning from the presidential debate, I'm
Talk
like,
about a
I'm
hangover.
sleeping. I had a breakfast this morning. I canceled last night about 1 in the morning, saying, I'm just gonna be beat in the morning. So, but it was a lot of fun. It was great to see a lot of people I haven't seen in a long time. I mean,
Yeah.
getting to do a lot of these interviews with Spectrum, Univision, and just a host of other folks was a lot. I mean, it was fun, amazing, and I mean, ended up in the spin room last night with like over 500 reporters, and I mean, it just brought back memories. I mean, I think this is my fourth or fifth presidential debate I've been involved in, with helping out with the press and being a spokesperson. Um, and it was truly a great time. Micah,
It,
and Mike, and I don't know how the hell you did this, but you ended up having some really good seats. I mean, yes, I was there to do media work, and I ended up getting a seat to sit down and watch the debate. But I mean, my seat was like behind this big giant blue pole, which I'll try to see if I could
you
post
should
some
put,
of
yeah,
this.
that's a good, the
Yeah,
picture you have of you in the pole. The obstructed view seat. That's what you got when you go to Ticketmaster, the obstructed view seat. You wonder why it's only $3, and then you realize because you have to have a flexible neck to see around what's going on. But
but you
yeah,
ended. I mean, and then you ended up. It's kind of funny because you ended up coming out on TV quite a bit. So
which is kind of scary. Hopefully, I wasn't picking my nose or anything, but I was wide awake. At least I could say that. Yeah, it was about five rows behind Stuart Varney, and even from behind, sometimes when he would start to talk, I'm like, "What the hell is that guy saying?" Because he has such an English accent,
yeah,
British accent, but it was for the work that we've done, it's kind of like a World Series game.
yeah.
And for me, it was enjoyable because I remember in 2015 and 16, I think there were like literally like 13 or 14 Republican debates, and I went to all but one of them and worked. So I was like behind the stage and, watching all of the machinations and doing the preparation and everything else. This one was, show up, sit down, you know, make a few comments out loud in my out loud voice during the course of the thing to get, we were definitely having some laughs in the row I was in. There's
Yeah.
no doubt about it. But it was energetic. There's an energy to it, if you're in our line of work. And obviously, doing it at the Reagan Library, which is an unbelievably great setting, was special as well. So, and we survived. And, we're
We
in,
survived, and the next one is in Miami
yeah.
on I believe it's in November 8th or somewhere around that time.
Hmm.
So, but
Well,
hey, Mike,
I'm telling you, man, you should get on the horn now and try and do some analysis for Telemundo or Univision, or I can try and do some analysis for the Comedy Channel, and Miami Beach ain't bad. I've been there.
yeah, no, it is a great place. Mike, so what was your I was looking at this looking at the debate, looking at the post debate, a lot of comments about Kamala Harris not being there and Gavin Newsom kind of taking the role over for the campaign. What is the lack of no confidence on her? There was discussions obviously about some of the topics discussed, such as immigration, inflation, energy. You know, and I think a couple of surprising things. When it came to some of the questions that were asked by the moderators. It's there was that moment at the end where Dana Perino asked the question, please write down, who you would vote basically off the island if you could, which one of these candidates would you vote off the island? And there was, there was some contention there from the debaters over to her, for even asking that question.
They should have wrote down Dana Perino, get a real journalist. I was, I have a lot of respect for her. I mean, she did an amazing job in the Bush administration,
Right,
and she's done a great job on Fox. But it was too cute by half.
right.
And they called her out on it, which I thought was great. And I think the one who led that, it was kind of tough to, because everybody's talking at once, but it sounded to me like the one who did that first was DeSantis.
Right.
And he did that in the previous debate where they, raise your hand for this or that. And he's like, we're not going to get into that stuff. And I give him credit for that. And they all kind of
Yeah.
piped in, because it's these people are serious people. You may like them, you may not like them, but they're serious people and credentialed people. And she's trying to turn. I don't know if there was this kind of thing to make it hip or make it pop culture or whatever, but it was a terrible way to end the debate, I thought, and I think it left Fox with a black eye in a way because it was such a poorly scripted way to end the debate.
Well, you
So
you didn't get a lot of people. You didn't get a lot of people who would answer even, afterwards. And it's just that they end up going to one to two and give me your final thoughts, and everybody else got left in the dark because they only left that 5 minutes because
right,
they wanted to get this voting off the island. But and you and I at I don't know whatever time it was, 1 in the morning, so forth, over at Denny's. After it was the
I
only thing open. Um,
I know it's rich country club Republicans
yes, I
at
know. Over.
Denny's at 1 o'clock in the morning in the Valley.
Yeah. And so we talked about this, but I think it's important is so this was like a trap, right? It's like who you voting off the island, and they didn't fall for this one, but
Oh,
but there was another one there, another
yes.
trap that was laid out.
Amazingly, and I was angry about it because, and what I guess what made me angry was a little bit that it came from Dana Perino. That's the kind of thing I would expect from somebody else. And it was trying to pit one candidate against the other, specifically Tim Scott against Nikki Haley, the two South Carolinians, and it worked. The
Yeah.
whole ploy worked. And so, instead of Tim Scott, who I think had a very good night overall, instead of Tim Scott saying, and I think this is one of the things Republicans need to learn here, is that in the communication with the moderators,
Yeah.
you always tell people answer the question you wish they asked, don't answer the question they asked.
Hmm.
That still holds true. But in some cases, you'll win points
Right.
by putting the moderator in their place. And
Right.
so what Tim Scott really should have said is, you know what? I'm not going to address this I'm happy to answer your question, but I'm not going to address it to Nikki Haley. I'm going to address it right to the people that are watching because they're the ones that are going to vote. Nikki Haley's not going to vote for me for president of the United States in the primary. If I win, I hope she votes for me. If she wins, I'm going to vote for her, but she's not going to vote for me in the primary. So I'm not going to engage in that kind of stuff. But I will tell the people and then go into why what you've done to want to be president. Instead, you had the split screen TV. You had Nikki going at him kind of presenting his case to Nikki Haley, which was pretty awkward. It's like, what are you trying to prove to her? She comes back and takes a shot at him. Of course, he then takes a shot at her. And the media got what they wanted out of that, which was two, I thought, very credible candidates of substance going at each other. So chalk that as a win for the media and a loss for the GOP. And they fell for the trap of not just answering the question, but doing it in the manner that the moderator presented. And what they should have done is really just change the dynamic and say, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't care I don't care how you want me to do this. I'll address people as to why I should. I'm not going to address one single individual. And why Nikki Haley? Why do I have to explain it to Nikki Haley? Why not Chris Christie? Why not Doug Burgum? I mean, that they fell. Unfortunately, they fell for that, and it kind of spiraled at that point, and went into what the press wanted, which was, two people kind of going at each other,
Right,
when it didn't need to be that way.
and it's amazing, especially because we do this all the time when we talk to our clients. Is you're going to get the reporter. Sometimes they're going to ask you a question in a specific way. You don't have to answer it directly that way. You could answer it how you want to answer it. Don't allow yourself to get caught in that trap. And we work through a lot of these scenarios with execs, with candidates, with other folks who are going to do interviews or potentially get in front of a media in some time. And I mean, these are all seasoned individuals, and so it was amazing to see them fall in that trap. But luckily, they didn't fall in the second trap,
Hmm.
where
And,
they
and
said, we're not going to see who we vote off the island. Of
I
that.
think part of that, looking at it from a comm standpoint, communication standpoint, part of that was because of who asked the question. See, if that was Anderson Cooper or someone from MSNBC or something like that, they probably would have been more on their defensive. These guys are trying to trap me, because it was someone that they probably felt was kind of more akin to them because of her previous work in the Bush administration and the fact she's on Fox News and the Fox 5 and all this other stuff. They let their guard down with the media because of who it was, and she took advantage of that. And quite frankly, I think that sucked. To be honest with you, I was like, come on, girl. But I mean, she's a journalist. If they learned anything from this, all of them, it should be, it doesn't matter who's sitting at that desk. Don't trust them. They're not out for your well-being. They're not out to promote you. They're not out to make you look good. I don't care if they worked for Trump or Romney. I don't care who they work for. If they're sitting there as a member of the media, you treat them as someone to be wary of, regardless of how well you know them and regardless of what their credentials are and where you may have known them from. Um, you know, I'm, I mean, I'll tell you a story. I learned that when I was a young Republican. I remember I was working for the great mayor of Providence, and I was also chairman of the Young Republicans in Rhode Island. And we had a candidate running for, I think it was general treasurer, and a press guy that I knew very, very well, great guy. He asked me a question. Do you think that, Ronald Reagan on top of the ticket is going to help or hurt this guy in Rhode Island? And, in my usual flip manner, even back then, I said, Jesus Christ on top of the ticket ain't going to help this guy. Well, that's what he puts in. The guy gets all pissed off, and I end up getting reamed out by the mayor. Uh, Many times I get reamed out by the mayor. But you never, no matter how well you know them, no matter how much you think they're on your side, they're not.
Yeah.
They've got a job to do, and their job is to put you into a corner and make you do something that is going to make them news, but not necessarily in your own best interest. So
Well, and,
lesson
and, it, and
learned.
it really comes down to keep your guard up at all times.
Yeah,
You're
with the
just,
media,
and
absolutely.
that's one of the things, the important things is, even when you've got the mic on, it's like people are listening. Just keep your guard
Hmm.
up during the whole time. But
Exactly.
going into a little bit more into debate, and I was looking at my notes that I wrote last night as we were having our Denny's late night dinner. And oddly enough, it's worse than chicken scratch. I mean, but in looking at my notes, I know we talked about last night too. Is all these different sound bites, that the candidates
Right.
were throwing out there. All these kind of one liners. There's some good one liners that were thrown out there. Chris Christie had a good one liner. When he looked directly in the camera, and he said, "Look, Donald, I know you can't help yourself. You're watching this debate." And he called him, people are going to be referring to him as Donald Duck. A good line. Um, Nikki Haley had one over to Vivek on some of the things he was saying. I don't remember exactly. I think she said,
Every time I listen to you, I get a little bit dumber,
"Yes, that's what it was." Yeah, but
which may be from a movie somewhere, I think.
it's like, okay, so we've got all these one-liners. what we a lot of these folks, and I said this at Univision a couple times in Telemundo last night, is because they asked me, said, "What is this debate about? What are they looking to prove?" I said, "Well, right now this is like a job interview, and it's a job interview where the people making the decision are the voters, and so they've got to go out there and present themselves, present their ideas, solutions, and so forth, but with a lot of one-liners. But what seemed to be missing here were, here are my 3 points, or here are my 2 points on how I would solve this problem. Here's one concrete idea, two or three. We got a lot of, I've done it before, I've done it here,
Yeah.
I've got experience. To me, that was the part that was a little bit lacking.
Substance. Yeah, and I think a couple of times folks hit on it. The ones that strike me the most that talked about it, talked about stuff of substance, of what they would do, as opposed to just saying, I've done it here and this is what, and I'll do it there. Were Nikki Haley, ironically enough, Nikki Haley and Tim Scott. To me, those were the two that did get into specific things that they would do. But the others, it was just more along the lines of, this is, I've done this before in my state, and this is what I would do for the country. And so they went more with the. Sometimes it felt more like they were auditioning to be a host for Saturday Night Live when they come back. And probably, if that's the case, Chris Christie has a really good chance, because he had some great lines and he delivered them well. And Mike Pence has no chance because he had no lines and delivered the ones he tried poorly, including the one about the teachers union and his wife. And it was like, whoa, TMI, Mike, TMI. So there wasn't really, what their job is right now is to try and convince a republic. The first debate was about them trying to convince people that they are the candidate, to step up if Donald Trump were somehow falling, whether it be because of election stuff or because of legal stuff or what have you, or whatever, that they are ready to step in and be the front runner. And I think in the first debate, several of them made that case very, very well. In this debate, none of them made the case that they should be the one to replace him, even if he doesn't fall. And I think that's where, if you look at it from a standpoint of what did they achieve or not achieve, I think that's exactly what happened. They did not. They achieved showing that they have some depth. They achieved showing that they're articulate. But what they did not achieve was convincing Republican voters, who currently are now overwhelmingly supporting Donald Trump, that they should be an alternative to him, regardless of whether or not he's in or out. I don't think any of them made that case last night.
And that really plays well into kind of the last area we discussed last night, is what were some of the surprises that came out of it. I know you had, as you mentioned right now, is that, you know was there anyone who really stood out, or is there anyone who really shined, from the pack? Did anyone come across as though they're ready to, strip down some of the poll numbers that you got from Trump right now? And with your comments right now, obviously to you it didn't look like it. I mean, there was a couple of other items for me that was surprising too. I mean, and more of it, kind of in the sad part, was I was really taken aback with Univision and how many questions they got to ask on immigration, as though that's the only thing that Hispanics care about. And even looking at Univision's polling that came out this week, I mean, jobs in the economy were front and center, gas prices, roads. Um, there's a tremendous amount of other things, education, and yet they got somehow we ended up spending a quarter of this debate just talking about immigration. Now, I know it's an important issue with what's happening in the border, but you probably could have spread those questions around and not have the host, ask about that, then ask about DACA and ask about a variety of other things
Right.
because I it's this idea of being pigeonholed all the time and realizing that that Hispanics we care about more than just immigration. We care
Right.
about I mean we care about it what every other we care about everything you care about, Mike, and everyone else cares about,
Right.
especially here in California where where Hispanics cover or Latinos cover a majority of the population. And to just get it tracked down over to or bogged down where we are just talking about immigration, I think was a disservice to the network. It's a disservice to the people itself. But that's the thing that kind of got me a bit just a little frustrated because
That's, I think that's a great point. They played into the stereotype, which is that's all that Spanish people, Hispanics, Latinos care about, and it's not. Even their own. What's ironic is, as you just said, even their own data shows
yeah,
that that's not all they care about. And what it did is it reinforced amongst people that this is all they care about, and and maybe it is. I mean, but they exactly what you said. I mean, you collect data so that you use data to do a better job, and by just doing the same routine things over and over about immigration and immigration and immigration, it does do a disservice not only to them as a credible news organization, but to the community that they serve because they're not representing what the community they serve is worried about, which is, like you said, their own data shows how much it costs to get gas, how much it costs to get milk, how much it costs to get medicine. All of the same things most people are interested in.
yeah,
And so they play to their stereotype, which was unfortunate. They had a chance to do something different.
yeah, yeah,
And
and
so I think that was, you're right, that was a surprise. It was a missed opportunity for them. But I think, to me, some of the surprises from last night were just how no one really rose. Like in the last debate, to me, Nikki Haley rose. And I think she still, I mean, if I had to pick someone that won the debate last night, I would say it was Nikki Haley. Because, she fended off attacks on her, but she also gave as good as she got. Um, so I think she, if you had to pick a winner, it was probably her. But it wasn't like it was in the first debate where it was, significantly different. Um, and I think the other one is Vivek is just I don't know, man. He's he tried to. It was just kind of funny because he was trying to be more friendly and what have you, and ended up in the middle of the whole China thing and TikTok and what have you, and his business dealings and everything else. But I will say this, and maybe this was a surprise to me, and we'll see how it plays out over time. One of the things Nikki Haley did is she broke new ground when she went after Ron DeSantis about his record on fracking and oil, and talked about, well, you talk about day one, but what about day two when you took over? And I don't really, no one has been talking about that. And so I think probably what's happening now is the Oppo researchers of all these campaigns and probably in the media are now doing, looking to see exactly what it is that happened in Florida and why it happened. And it'll be interesting to see that come up as
yeah,
well. Maybe the other thing just to throw out there that surprised me, and we talked about this on the last podcast, I actually thought abortion would be talked about more last
yeah,
night than it was because, there has been this dust up within the Republican Party where, Trump talked about abortion as being an issue that hurt us in 2022, our inability to message that. And people like Mike Pence, Ron DeSantis took really umbrage with that, as did some of the Christian organizations within the party. So I was surprised that didn't come up as much as it did. I thought it would.
yeah. Well, it's another debate in the books. as we mentioned, and the next one is I believe it's November 8th over in
in
Miami.
Miami.
Should be a lot of fun there. But no, it was. I had a great time here. Like I said, I had a great time hanging out with you. Although I didn't get to sit, 5 rows back. I had to sit behind a pole somewhere in the mezzanine section. But it was good also getting together with Luis Alvarado and seeing him do his thing, which is great. I hadn't seen him in a while, and so it was nice to like I said, get together with a lot of folks. And it was exhausting, but it was. I think I want to say I clocked in like 8 miles yesterday, just walking
Oh,
back and
just
forth.
walk. Yeah, walking in the library. Yeah,
Yeah, walking
and
back
it's a
and forth
beautiful.
from one place to another to another. Yeah. So
And let me just put in a plug for the library for anybody that's in California that hasn't been there. Man, you should go. And it doesn't matter what party you are.
yeah,
I mean, it is one of the better presidential libraries that you will find. And I think, regardless of your political persuasion, you can walk away there with a lifted spirit,
yeah,
which is a good thing in politics these days. Even if you don't agree with the policy, what President Reagan was able to do, the way he comported himself. Even if you're not on the same page, and certainly if you are, it's just in some respects overwhelming. But it's a great place to visit and see a portion of history, and a portion of politics that was different than it is today. Clearly, it's completely different.
yeah. And you get to see, and we talked about this as we were walking through the Reagan Library together. As we were going to the actually as we were walking over to the seats, um, you could see the pictures, you saw video and everything, and what you really saw is a man who you said it best, who was comfortable, who seemed comfortable in
Oh,
his own skin. Yeah,
Ronald Reagan had a core of what he believed. He had an ability to articulate that in a way that did not offend people, even when you disagreed with him. He had an ability to do something which is rare today, which is work with the other side. Either way, going either way. Um, and he just believed in what he believed, and um, it's it's funny because sometimes those of us who have been in politics for so long, you see the way politics is today, and you need something like that to give you a shot of inspiration and hope that we can somehow get back to that, where you can have disagreements without being disrespectful. Um, but the one thing he had, I always say this is, and he had that core belief of what he believed, and he didn't waver from that. And
yeah,
I think that's what made him someone comfortable in his own skin.
yeah, yeah.
So
Well,
go
well,
see it
Mike,
if you haven't had a chance. Go see it, and
yeah,
they'll
well,
clean up the blood on the floor has probably been cleaned up by now from last night, and all the other shenanigans that might have taken place afterwards. But um, I do think it was inspirational. But having said that, I do think that we should take the Hector and Mike show to South Beach, Miami. I could use a little sun.
that would be
Walk
fun.
along the beach. We do it right on the beach. I remember going to the debate in Miami in 2015 or 2016. I forget if it was 15 or 16 at the University of Miami.
Mhm.
And the one thing I remember about that one is I was behind the stage, and I have a picture of this. And this was after the New Hampshire debate where Marco Rubio and Donald Trump were arguing about the size of their hands, and all of that comes with that. And in the behind the stage before they go out to start their debate, there's Marco and Donald Trump doing this. Who's got the bigger hand? And I'm just like, man, this is surreal. But South Beach, I think we should be there.
I think we should. I think we should. So, well, Mike, it was great seeing you yesterday. Great getting together, and that pretty much concludes this episode.
Time,
And so,
time for a
until the next,
nap.
what was that?
Time for a nap.
Time for a nap. Yep. Time for the rest of the interviews that happen later on this afternoon.
That's
But
right.
all right, take
All
care, Mike.
right. Thanks.